Dallas Cowboys Talk with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Let's get right into it. So, I know we saw the Falcons game. I know we saw the Falcons game, okay? Um, yeah, self-inflicted wounds. Yeah, yeah, a lot of self-inflicted wounds. A lot of self-inflicted wounds that game. Unfortunately, salt was poured on the wound when Dak Prescott injured his hamstring, and now he's out for several weeks, possibly the rest of the year. Okay, and so here comes Cooper Rush. Um, it's Cooper Rush time for the foreseeable future for a large majority of the rest of the season. So here comes Cooper Rush. Um, I know not players, but fans. I know fans are wanting this team to tank. I know fans are wanting this team to tank this year. But let me tell you something. No, I don't want him to tank. Period. Call me crazy. Call me crazy, but I don't want the team to tank. No, no, you can't cheat the game. Period. And I bet those players in the locker room are probably thinking the same thing. Those players in the locker room are probably thinking the same thing. You can't cheat the game, so we're not going to tank. Okay. Now maybe I'm wrong, but I just think the players in that locker room have a different mentality. Okay. I don't think the players want to tank the season. Okay. And as a fan, no, I don't want him to tank the season. Period. I don't want him to tank. Get mad at me because it ruins our draft status, but no, I don't want this team to tank. Period. Now, um, we just got to see. We just got to do our best going forward. That's all he can do. Just do our best going forward. Um, so yeah. So the '91 Cowboys went 11-5. Okay, they won a playoff game, 17-13 over the Bears at Soldier Field. Okay, they did block a punt that game against the Bears. I might add, they did block a punt. Okay, so they go to Detroit the next week to play the Lions in the Silver Dome. Okay, and um, and so there were a couple of things that emerged from that. Okay, um, well, there's a storyline that emerged towards the end of the season where Troy Aikman was like 95% healthy and he was wanting to play. But Jimmy Johnson decided Beuerlein led the Cowboys to 5 straight wins, and Jimmy Johnson decided he was going to stick with what was working. Okay, so Steve Beuerlein got to start against the Bears in the playoff game. Okay, and there were some fans who foolishly thought that Steve Beuerlein was better than Troy Aikman. There were some fans who foolishly thought that Beuerlein should be starting over Aikman, which was absolute blasphemy. Okay, if you talk to the Cowboy players, okay, and Steve Beuerlein talked about that. Steve Beuerlein said me and Troy were very, very close, and Steve knew his role on the team. He knew Troy was the guy, and Steve, to his credit, never poured any fuel on that fire, on that fire that could have developed, on that quarterback controversy that could have developed. Steve never poured any fuel on that fire. Okay, but Troy Aikman was pressuring Jimmy to play, and Jimmy said, "I'm sticking with Steve. Steve is a guy." Steve is the guy. It's working. Okay. So so yeah, there were some fans who foolishly thought that that Beuerlein should be starting over Aikman permanently. Oh Lord have mercy. So um I already mentioned that Aikman was injured. He was injured in the Redskins game in which Steve Beuerlein came in and won the game. 5 straight wins at the end of the season. 17-13 win versus the Bears. Okay. Um, Aikman was 95% ready um, after the Chicago Bears win. After the Bears win. But again, Jimmy said he would stick with what was working. So something had happened while the Cowboys were on their way to Detroit. Okay. And the players knew, um, and the players, players kind of know when they see bad signs. Okay, players know when they see bad signs. So the Cowboys' flight was en route to Detroit. Okay, the Cowboys' flight was into Detroit to the Detroit Metropolitan Airport. Okay, so the Cowboys' flight, the plane flew into a hailstorm. Okay, so when the plane flew into a hailstorm, you know what happens when you fly into a storms? Turbulence. There was turbulence. Okay, the plane flew into a hailstorm, and the players got their vomit bags. They were vomiting into their vomit bags. True story. True story. Um, According to John Gesek, offensive lineman, he said the jet touched down, skidded to the side, and then returned to the air. Okay, that's what had happened. On top of being in a hailstorm, having turbulence. Okay. Um, then John Gesek went on to say, turns out that the Cowboys' flight, they were nearly T-boned by another plane. Okay, the Cowboys' flight was nearly rear-ended by another plane. Okay, and so I just said players know bad signs when they see them. Okay, so John Gesek went on to say, nearly dying before the day of the game is never an encouraging sign. Okay, yeah, nearly dying before the day of a playoff game, not a good sign. Never a good sign. And so, how right John Gesek was, because we got crushed 38-6. We got crushed 38-6 in that playoff game. Okay, and Rob Awalt, the Cowboys tight end, said that may have been the only time that I saw Jimmy pull the wool over his eyes. Okay, yeah, that may have been the only time that I saw Jimmy pull the wool over his eyes. Linebacker Vincent Smith said, we were good, but we weren't ready yet. And so after that loss, um, after that loss, Nate Newton talked about it in the Deep Blue documentary, 1991, how the 1991 season gave birth to a dynasty. Okay, so Nate Newton talked about how they came in, how the players came in, they were slapping fives, talking about how good of a season they had. And Nate Newton recalls that Jimmy Johnson came in and swung the door open and said, what? We are better than this. You people are effing celebrating over this? We are better than this. We will be better than this. Yada, yada, yada. And the players all stopped what they were doing and said, yeah, you're right. You're right. In other words, the players were celebrating the fact that they had a good hit season and Jimmy Johnson quickly shut that down. Needless to say, Jimmy Johnson quickly shut that down. Okay, and so after the game, um, after the game, Johnson did two things that Johnson did two things that would prove huge for the Cowboys winning um, three Super Bowls in the next 4 years. Okay, the first thing he probably did was the most important because Aikman had problems with his Jimmy, and Aikman, far as Troy Aikman was concerned, he was gone. He was gone. He was out of there. And so what happened was during the game, Beuerlein wasn't performing well in the Liners game. Johnson pulled Beuerlein and inserted Aikman. Okay, and after the game, Troy was telling a couple of people that he was out of there. Okay, but before Troy could do that, Jimmy Johnson took him aside and said, "Hey Troy, you're my guy, undisputed. You are my guy over and out, 100%." Okay, and that was crucial. And when Johnson did that, the dynasty started. The Dallas dynasty started. The second thing he did was he had a meeting with his coaches after the game. And to Johnson's words, he said, "Next year, this shit doesn't happen. Next year, Super Bowl." Needless to say, they went into Super Bowl. Go figure. Okay. So yeah, that's just so in light of Cooper Rush, um, gonna be filling in for Dak Prescott for the next several weeks. I thought um, that was this was a pretty good topic to discuss. So, all right, that's it. That's all for Classic Dallas Cowboys talk. God is great. Jesus Christ is Lord. I am out of here. Peace.